Kendrick Lamar was just named the performer of the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show, taking place at the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana, and all hell is breaking loose in the hip hop community. It's kind of wild. This isn't the first Super Bowl halftime show performer that's come with some controversy, like when Justin Timberlake reemerged at the Super Bowl halftime show after sharing in that wardrobe malfunction several years back that actually hurt Janet Jackson's career at the time. People didn't like that Janet Jackson had to suffer the consequences of the wardrobe malfunction and that Justin Timberlake pretty much got to ride scot-free. Or when Jay-Z started taking over the production of these Super Bowl halftime shows. This came at a time when Colin Kaepernick was taking the knee and losing his job basically in the NFL. And there was a lot of friction between much of the black community and the NFL. Jay-Z was then installed as essentially the new executive producer of the Super Bowl halftime shows. A lot of people thought that at the time that was almost a pacifist move to install somebody who's beloved in the black community, in the hip hop community. I mean, largely, right? Jay-Z's an icon, and putting him in the position to oversee and run the Super Bowl halftime show kind of took some of the heat off the NFL at the time. And I remember, I believe it was Rihanna who turned down the opportunity to play at the Super Bowl halftime show. And it was seen to be a move in solidarity with that movement and with Colin Kaepernick. And then it became a question of, well, who's going to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show? It ended up being Shakira and Jennifer Lopez. I believe that was the first Jay-Z run Super Bowl halftime performer. But this time around, the controversy is because this is just happening in the wake of Kendrick Lamar seemingly defeating Drake in this epic 2024 hip hop battle among the two elites, the top two essentially rappers of this modern era, which was an unparalleled rap battle. I mean, I know it started with, sneak disses in the past and then Drake and J. Cole collaborating on First Person Shooter, but it wasn't really until Kendrick Lamar started calling the other members of the top three out on that Future and Metro Boomin track Like That in Kendrick Lamar's featured verse. That was pretty much the first major domino to fall to get this, basically to turn this Cold War hot. And then you got Drake's response, Push-Ups, which I'm going to issue another video because I still have questions in terms of why that first version of Push-Ups was leaked in a lower quality audio that Drake then officially released later on that day with some of the lyrics changed up. The beat was changed up. Remember that original Push-Ups had that get money, and then Drake continued to rap a little bit longer on that original, the leaked version of Push-Ups, and then he re-released it as a better produced, slightly altered version of it. I still have questions about that, like who leaked that and why was that leaked in the way that it was? I got the impression that this battle didn't start off in the way that Drake wanted it to. And then Drake released that follow-up to Push-Ups while everybody was waiting for Kendrick to respond, thinking, damn, Kendrick's taking a while. And there was Drake was looking like the winner. Yes, it was early in the battle and hindsight is 2020. But at the time, it was looking like Drake was on the front foot taking the fight to Kendrick. That's what it looked like, because then he dropped that AI voiced with Tupac's voice and Snoop Dogg's voice diss track. So then it looked like it didn't look like he was trolling the West Coast necessarily. It looked like he was putting Kendrick Lamar under a microscope and basically saying, what you gonna do, Kendrick? You gonna represent for the West? Cause here, I've got Pac's voice, Snoop's voice, and we're all coming at you. That was like the idea. And yes, that one did kind of backfire on Drake. But then Kendrick Lamar released the phenomenal Euphoria. He backed it up with that more soulful 616 in LA. I really like that one. And if you go back and re-listen to that one was actually kind of a sleeper gem. And I love that beat switch up too. And then there was all that 616 symbolism that accompanied the track that just got the internet just in a frenzy, kind of decoding what all of these references to 616 were pointing to. But that was Kendrick Lamar's follow-up to the phenomenal Euphoria. And then Drake comes back and drops Family Matters nearly, I believe it was like close to a week later. And then on that same night, Kendrick Lamar releases Meet the Grams. And then on the next day, he dropped Not Like Us, which became like the song of the year. Like, yes, Sabrina Carpenter has a mega song out this year. There are other contenders, but for me, there's a clear winner. Not Like Us is the song of 2024. The way that that song just became ubiquitous in not even just rap and hip hop culture, but in mainstream American culture. Not Like Us was everywhere and still is. You can't get away from it. And then Drake responded with The Heart Part 6. It wasn't enough. It sounded like Drake was crying foul. It sounded like he had had enough. He even indicated that he was kind of done with this in the track. So Kendrick Lamar to the public emerges as the clear winner of this battle, of this epic battle. And then Kendrick has that Juneteenth concert at the Forum in Inglewood, and that was basically the victory lap, so to speak, where he got so many people from the West on stage with him, and they just played. I mean, it was a whole performance where he played many of his biggest and best hits, but he topped it off with doing Not Like Us, and then doing like 5, 6, I don't know how many encores with everybody, even people who Drake was shouting out on his Kendrick Lamar diss tracks, on stage with him, with Kendrick Lamar, as he was just doing encore after encore of Not Like Us on Juneteenth in LA. It just, again, looked like a huge victory lap, whereas Drake was doing, tracks with Sexy Red and other stuff that, just had the public kind of scratching their head like, damn, is Drake really done with this? And he's just gonna act like, he's just gonna continue with his regularly scheduled program like none of this ever happened. So it's in the context of that Kendrick Lamar is chosen as the Super Bowl halftime performer in New Orleans, the home of Birdman and Lil Wayne, who really put Drake on. So yeah, this was not gonna fly without controversy. And you had that Nicki Minaj Twitter barrage, or X barrage, where she was essentially calling Jay-Z a sellout, basically saying Colin Kaepernick took the knee and the other guy took the bag. And then she just went on about how you're not going to disrespect Lil Wayne like this. What, because of your hate for Birdman, for Nicki, and for Drake, you're going to do this to Lil Wayne? So then the conversation then becomes, did Lil Wayne deserve to be the Super Bowl halftime show in New Orleans for this Super Bowl? Now, I don't know all of the backroom discussions that go on to determine who the Super Bowl halftime performer is going to be, but you would have to think that the name at least came up, right? So, I mean, maybe it turns out, and maybe we'll learn later, that Lil Wayne wasn't even interested in the opportunity. And, my cousin actually also pointed out that in terms of Super Bowls and where they are hosted, New Orleans is second to only, I believe, Miami in terms of the Super Bowl location. So it's not like this is going to be like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Super Bowls pretty much have to take place in warm weather venues. So either a dome in a cold area, because it takes place in the beginning of February, or in a moderate to warm climate like Arizona, LA, Miami, New Orleans. So there might be an opportunity in the future, maybe not even a too distant future, where Lil Wayne could have his flowers at the Super Bowl halftime show. Because let's be clear, Lil Wayne's resume is clearly lifetime achievement status. He is one of the greatest rappers of all time, period. And if you look at who he put on, who he mentored, Lil Wayne's impact in the game, lyrically, culturally, if you look at his getup, he was like one of the first rappers to just be tatted from head to toe with the dreads, just having that rock star persona, to being like the feature king in that mixtape era, the Drought 2, Drought 3, Dedications, No Ceilings, Sorry for the Wait, all of those series. Lil Wayne kind of redefined the game in those mid to late 2000s. So he is one of the most impactful figures in hip hop history, especially in this modern era, the last 20 to 25 years. And if you think about it, it would have been great for Lil Wayne to headline this Super Bowl. He could have brought out Drake, Nicki Minaj, Birdman, and Manny Fresh, the big timers. He could have brought them out. He could have brought out the Hot Boys, Juvenile, BG, Turk. I know that there's a little inner turmoil with a couple of the members, but he could have basically brought out Juvie and whoever else wants to take the stage with him. It could have been a phenomenal halftime show. And to be fair, Kendrick Lamar just hit the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show like 2-3 years ago when it was Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre with Mary J. Blige, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar. And then they had 50 Cent and Anderson .Paak come out as well. But Kendrick Lamar was featured in that Super Bowl halftime performance. And here we are 3 years later, and he's gonna take the stage as the main headliner. And he could feature whoever he wants in this thing. Maybe he does bring out Lil Wayne, even though I think that that would be kind of disrespectful of Lil Wayne to agree to feature in a Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl halftime show in the wake of this Kendrick Lamar versus Drake battle. That wouldn't seem right. But the conversation went from, damn, this is like essentially Kendrick Lamar spiking the football on Drake, to should this be Lil Wayne's moment to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show? And Kendrick Lamar even cut like a promo where he's launching footballs from one of those passing machines. And one of the things that he says is, you only have one chance, or something like one opportunity to win the championship, no round twos, which references a recent mention of a round two by Drake that had a lot of people speculating, is Drake about to relitigate this thing? Is he about to reignite the battle with Kendrick? Well, Kendrick Lamar says no round twos. You got one shot to win the championship. So he's even kind of trolling Drake in this Super Bowl halftime show promo where he announces that he's going to be the halftime performer. So 2024 has been a rough year, at least professionally. Look, I know he's probably made tons of money. I mean, Drake is Drake. He's one of the biggest pop stars, not even hip hop stars, pop stars and celebrities in the world. Like, Drake is Drake, right? This doesn't change that. Yes, this was a pretty damaging wound in the public sphere as it pertains to rap battles and reputations, but Drake is still Drake. But man, he has taken some heavy L's in 2024. And you know, by and large, Kendrick Lamar, again, great resume, great rapper, great career, and he's having like this huge 2024 without even dropping an album. You can make an EP, a sick EP with just Kendrick Lamar's disses. And if you look at his album by album, his discography, his catalog, he's got one of the strongest, I believe, in rap history. If you look at his album by album quality, it's a short list of rappers who don't have one miss out of their albums, right? So, I mean, whether you start with, I mean, there was the early output, OD, Overly Dedicated, Section 80, that's when the public started, you know, taking notice of Kendrick Lamar. Section 80, which I love, by the way, ADHD, Hold up, Rigor Mortis, that's a sick album, right? But then he got signed to Aftermath, and you know, along with Top Dog, and he releases Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, Damn, and Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. If you look at like the critical acclaim of each of those and where those albums fit, when you look at like the greatest albums of the 2020s or the 2010s or the greatest rap albums of all time, any of those types of lists, you usually find like 2 or 3 Kendrick Lamar albums in there. So it's really hard to find another, no matter how great the career is, usually there are some albums in there that the public and the critics don't love as much. Even if you look at like Jay-Z's catalog, you know, Magna Carta, Holy Grail wasn't looked upon as favorably. Thy Kingdom Come, same thing. That was kind of looked at as being Jay-Z's first brick. It wasn't a terrible album, but just compared to the others, it fell short. You would really have to look at like Outkast as being somebody who album by album never really missed a beat. They just kind of grew in popularity, but they didn't have like an album that was a dud or that just fell short of expectations. Kendrick Lamar is on a very short list. I mean, who else? Maybe Tribe Called Quest. There are only a few. Again, even the rappers that have like great albums, like Eminem's got multiple great albums. A lot of MCs, you know, Ghostface Killah was going on a really good run, but usually their career hits a point where they then start dropping albums that are less desired. So, you know, Kendrick Lamar really might eventually hit that moment where people aren't checking out for Kendrick Lamar albums like that. It's inevitable, right? Or to drop an album that they say, this one just wasn't doing it for me. I mean, maybe some people feel that way about Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, or maybe even Damn. But by and large, when you look at the acclaim, when you look at the reputation, the success, album over album, Kendrick Lamar's resume has been about as good as it gets. But this all brings me back to whether this was like a deliberate slight on Drake and on Young Money, basically Lil Wayne and the Cash Money Young Money family, at the hands or at the behest of Jay-Z. Was this like a deliberate shot at Drake and Weezy to have Kendrick Lamar headline in New Orleans? I don't think there's nothing to it. At first I downplayed it and I didn't think it was a thing, right? And it's not like the whole rapper and location thing has been a thing. Like, look, first of all, back in the days, the Super Bowl halftime shows were usually like just collegiate marching bands. They didn't even start having superstar performers until really Michael Jackson in the early 90s. I remember my dad went to that Super Bowl. That one was in Pasadena, California at the Rose Bowl. But yeah, Michael Jackson was really the first superstar performance. I mean, you did have Gloria Estefan. Gloria Estefan performed like the year before. And I think like a couple years prior, you might have had like New Kids on the Block. And a few years before that, you had Chubby Checker. That's the guy who did the twist, not Twist and Shout, but the twist. But before that, you had like mostly marching bands. But what I was saying is the rapper matching the location thing, that was only really Snoop and Dre, where it was an LA thing. It was like the inaugural Super Bowl at that SoFi Stadium location, you know, the new home of the Rams. The Rams were in the Super Bowl. It was at SoFi, and you had Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, who are about to drop an album together. The first fully Dr. Dre produced Snoop Dogg album since Doggy Style in '93. They're about to drop a follow-up. I think it's called Missionary, but yeah, they're about to drop one later this year. But yeah, this was like an exception, not the norm. And you know, even when Usher did his ATL thing, right, where he brought out some of the ATL legends in last year's Super Bowl, that took place in Vegas. That wasn't in Atlanta. So it's not like, I feel like it's almost an expectation now that, hey, the Super Bowl is going to take place here. You know what? You should honor this rap legend or, you know, entertainment legend in their hometown when the Super Bowl is being hosted there. Maybe that ends up being a thing. But again, it's only happened, as far as I can see, once. I mean, even under the stewardship of Jay-Z, Shakira and J-Lo performed in Miami, which, yeah, there's a lot of Latin flavor. So they brought out Bad Bunny, J Balvin. So, okay, Miami, but it's not like it was a homecoming. And then you had The Weeknd playing in Tampa, Florida. And then you had the Snoop and Dre with Mary J, Kendrick Lamar, and Eminem in SoFi, in Inglewood, LA, Inglewood, California. But then you had like Rihanna in Glendale, Arizona. That wasn't a homecoming. And then you had Usher in Vegas. And now you got Kendrick Lamar in New Orleans. So yeah, you could have used this as an opportunity to honor Lil Wayne, but they went with Kendrick Lamar. I'm not sure what to make of whether this was a purposeful slight by Jay-Z helping Kendrick Lamar spike the football on Drake. I feel like it wasn't that, and that the public, because of the context, is making so much of it. But man, when you start, you know, pointing to a lot of, when you start connecting the dots, it does look a little sus. You know what I mean? It looks like there might be something to it, especially, you know, there's also the rumored, you know, friction between Jay-Z and Birdman, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, when Lil Wayne was talking about being the greatest rapper alive, even though Jay-Z featured him on Hello Brooklyn from the American Gangster album that Jay-Z released. And Jay-Z is featured on like multiple Drake tracks. Like he featured on his debut and on, I want to say, Scorpion. So I don't think that Jay-Z was trying to do that, just trying to on Drake, even though the result is the whole internet basically, and you know, a lot of the culture is looking at this and talking about how big of an L this is for Drake. So yeah, Drake can't catch a break in 2024. I'm sure he's going to get back on track career-wise with his next, you know, major single, his next album. I don't think this is going to have like super lasting damage, although some disagree. Look, when it comes to these rap battles, by the way, and superstars involved, there's a reason why they don't get involved in these high-risk battles. It's because this might happen, and nobody wants that for their career. So maybe in the future, people kind of back off of the heat a little bit and say, nah, I don't want that kind of smoke. Let me keep my career on track and not derail it with losing, or the potential of losing, a high profile, very visible, out in the open battle. But yeah, you know, to the victor go the spoils, as they say. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you think that this was an actual slight to Drake, or if this was just a timing thing where the optics just look a certain way, given that it's in New Orleans and given that it's Kendrick Lamar fresh off his defeat of Drake with Euphoria in all those tracks. Not Like Us, Meet the Grams. And yeah, the way that Not Like Us wasn't my favorite diss. I like Euphoria. I like a lot. I like Family Matters by Drake. I like that diss. But Not Like Us is the one that captured the public's imagination, became the biggest song and really musical moment of 2024 so far. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one, with Kendrick Lamar being the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show performer at the Superdome in New Orleans. Also, does Kendrick Lamar perform Not Like Us at the Super Bowl? I mean, on one hand, I'm thinking, can Kendrick Lamar do anything without the crowd expecting him to do Not Like Us? But then I'm also thinking that Not Like Us isn't exactly Super Bowl halftime show appropriate in terms of the theme, the content, you know, what Drake is being accused of participating in some. I don't know if that's family friendly to where Kendrick Lamar can actually execute the lyrics of that song at the halftime show. Like, I mean, what's he gonna do? Maybe the marching band plays the instrumental of Not Like Us and Kendrick Lamar doesn't exactly perform the song. Or, you know, a lot of these Super Bowl halftime shows are like medleys, right? You don't get like full song performances. You might get like a verse and a chorus, then it's on to the next. Maybe Kendrick Lamar does like but even the first verse, I mean, damn, listen to how that, I mean, well, it's the second part. It's before the first chorus, but there's like that bridge in between where he's like, you know, beat you and hide the Bible if God watching. Then he gets back into it. And then it goes on, and then he's talking about wop. Yeah, I don't know, because maybe he just wraps it up to the point where he talks about striking the chord, and it's probably, and then he leaves it to the crowd to shout the A minor part. Like, is that what he's gonna do? Because even that, oh man, oh, that could get so bad. That's what's been so bad on the Drake end. The fact that the song was executed in a way that certain punchlines became ubiquitous and kind of woven into the fabric of mainstream culture, to where you could just say the first half of the line and anybody, you'd have to be under a rock not to know how to finish that line. So, I mean, does Kendrick do that? I don't know how they're gonna handle that one. I don't think they're gonna. You can't completely 100% stay away from the song. At least you would have to get the band to play the DJ Mustard instrumental. But I think that he might even take it a step further and get into performing at least a little bit of that song. But yeah, let me know what you think. I don't know if he performs that. What y'all think? And please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.